So one of my biggest achievements to date has been buying just under £1 million cash investment in Dubai, Emaar beachfront, address residences. I was able to buy that for just under £1 million cash at just the age of 33 years old. So how did we get there and how did it start? So here's my personal story. Hi, my name is Richard Norris. I'm the founder of a company called propertyconsulting.io. Some of my biggest achievements have been able to be proudly to invest in one of the first seed investors into school.com, which is owned by Sam Ovens and the GOAT Alex Amosi as a co-founder. I was one of the first seed investors into School under a simple agreement for future equity as a Series A investor. This journey really all started back when I was 15 years old. When I was 15 years old, I worked for a company called RMA Properties. My mum was the PA to the Arshad family back in Oxford, and they have a very large property portfolio. And really the journey started from there. I started working in the letting agency, doing inventory check-ins and check-outs, and understanding how a letting agency really worked from the ground up. I worked during school holidays and weekends to build my knowledge and to capitalize on the information that I'd learned, because I was always interested in how their family lived a completely different life to my family. My dad was a banker for Barclays Bank, and he worked in the bank for 41 years. We came from a very traditional, normal working class family in Oxford. My sister and I grew up and went to state school. And the family that my mum worked for, they're actually, they built wealth. And I was really fascinated by how they'd built their wealth. And so I started working in the letting agency, and I realized that it was through property. So I always had a huge aspiration and a huge desire to get into property and build my own wealth. And as a man, like, one of my biggest values is being a provider and a protector for my family. So with those kind of character traits instilled within me from a young age, that kind of gave me the desire and the passion to learn real estate from 15 years old and expand on that. So after that, I was kind of working, like making the transition from part-time employment, where I was working school holidays and the weekends. And I took a gap year when I finished school, and I ended up working in the letting agency full-time for the whole year, where I learned from Ash in RMA Properties. And again, I had a great experience there, learning how to build a property portfolio and actually run a property rental business from the ground up. I did that for 1 year, and then I went into work for a company called Warburton Building Services. Now, Warburton Building Services, it is the largest HVAC, so heating, ventilation and air conditioning contractor, for one of the largest UK developers called Taylor Wimpey, doing affordable housing. And I did day release. I went to the City of Bath College and I studied building services engineering. And I started off there as a mechanical design estimator, pricing jobs, pricing up the HVAC systems, and basically going out to try and win work and tender for commercial property and residential housing schemes across the UK. I really enjoyed my time there, but I really didn't like being constrained to an office working 9 till 5. And throughout that progression, I then moved to companies called CBG Consultants and Coda Consulting, where I carried on my 4-year internship. But through that process, I basically went from just a design estimator, and I worked up to being a lead project consultant, and was basically known to be what we call a senior mechanical design engineer, where I was developing the specs, specifying the items, and putting together and designing the HVAC systems and installations for large commercial property, real estate, schools, hospitals across the UK, and again, large housing infrastructure. During this time, I was able to earn good money, and that was a benefit. And I basically was able to buy my very first property at the age of 23 years old. And I bought that back in June 2013, and I bought it for £235,000 over in a place called Bicester in Oxford, in a place called Kempton Close. And it was just a 2-bed semi-detached property, and the way I was able to buy this property was on the Help to Buy scheme. Now, if you don't know how the Help to Buy scheme works, basically you put down a 5% deposit, and then the government basically give you an allowance of 20%. That enabled me to have a 25% down payment on the property, so then I could then afford to take out the mortgage. And you basically take out a 5-year repayment mortgage, and the first 5 years is interest free. And then in June 2018, I was able to sell that property 5 years later for £275,000. So yeah, like I made like a 35k profit on my very first deal. And to join this process, I realized like I didn't want to be confined to just building services engineering, working to a desk, stuck in an office. So actually, when I finished my 4-year internship, I branched out into medical devices. And this is really where I learned the art of selling. selling, negotiating, and I was basically a key account manager for a company called Globus Medical. Now, Globus Medical was the fastest growing orthopedic company in the world. They went from zero to $1 billion flat within inside 10 years. And it was basically co-founded by a guy called David Paul and Rick Kienzel. And Rick Kienzel's had a massive influence on my personal life. And was a massive influential figure who's helped me to contribute to where I am today. Basically, Globus Medical, what my job and my role was there was basically selling spinal prosthesis, so like ACDF cages, lumbar disc replacements for people that had sort of like idiopathic scoliosis and needed spinal surgery. My job as a key account manager was to go into new accounts in the southeast of the UK and start selling this technology to surgeons. So again, this is really where I learned the art of honestly just hustling and how to sell to surgeons and how to basically cold call. Now, for me, as I'm really passionate about sales, as you get to know me, you'll understand that I'm very passionate about sales, and I think it's a massive skill set, one of the number one skill sets that you need to learn to become a successful entrepreneur and more importantly, a property investor, because we're going to be closing out on big real estate deals and we're going to have to learn how to sell and learn how to negotiate to basically buy below market value and get what we call discounted properties and close those deals that we want to buy. So this was a key kind of milestone and a key era of my life where I learned the basics and the fundamentals of how to sell and really learned discipline as well. Alongside that, when I was working for Globus Medical, I then had a chance to move to a company called Medicrea. Now, Medicrea was owned by a guy called Denis Sognac, who was a multimillionaire in his own right. And at the time, Rick Kienzel came from Globus Medical, and he came over to Medicrea with another guy called Jonathan Mountford. Now, Jonathan Mountford grew a company, or helped be part of a company which was a Silicon Valley setup called Spinal Modulation, and they grew from 0 to 600 million as a sellout within 4 years. So I found myself at like 24, 25 years old being surrounded by influential entrepreneurs that were basically goats, right? They're basically grown multiple million-pound companies and exited, or like Rick Kienzel, grown billion-dollar companies and exited. And I found myself at 24 years old, sat in the office with Denis Sognac, Jonathan Mountford, and Rick Kienzel. Now, this was literally the most powerful, significant, biggest transition, and I would say eureka moment, an epiphany moment that I ever had in my life. And I looked as I was in the boardroom and I asked Rick specifically, Rick, how did you grow Globus from 0 to $1 billion brand in 10 years? And he looked at me and he said one thing, and he got up the whiteboard and he explained it to me, and he talked about something called the proprietary learning cycle. And he basically said that the way that you build loyalty and build customer branding and build a customer base is you basically go in and you start implementing one thing. So for us at the time, as Medicare, as a new company, we basically started implementing spinal rods. They were bespoke, patient-specific rods that help to restore sagittal balance. And he said it's not every day that you come across disruptive innovation that's going to revolutionize an industry. And what he meant by this proprietary learning cycle was that just go in, tell the surgeon to start using the rods. Don't worry about any other business. Don't worry about the cages, the screws, or anything. Just focus on the rods. Because to build the emergence of trust, truly to build the emergence of trust with any individual, like actions speak louder than words, and the individual must go what he calls through their own proprietary learning cycle. So he said, okay, give the surgeon the rod, let the surgeon use the rod, use the existing screws and cages that they're already familiar with, and then let them see the results. Now, every time they did a surgery with us, what would happen is the surgeon would ask more and more questions, we'd start doing procedures, and they would start to go through that learning proprietary circle themselves and get that feedback loop. And they would start basically learning to trust us more because they could see results. And that basically set me up for success in business, and it's what's been able to help me scale my own consulting business, propertyconsulting.io, to over £250,000 a month at the age of 34, and run profitable ad campaigns from £550,000 we've spent on Google ads recently, and we got back to just under £2.4 million in revenue with a £1.8 million profit. Now, I'm not telling you these things to glow or to brag, it's just part of my authentic story, so I just want to be frank with you about my key achievements and milestones in life, and really share with you the key things that got me there. And this moment working with Rick Kienzel is one of those things. It helped me to build customer loyalty with my own clients, it helped me to get them results, and it helped to build the emergence of trust, because all of my clients that come and work with us at propertyconsulting.io and build their portfolios go through their own proprietary learning cycle. So having done that successfully, I realized, okay, well, during this transition period, another key milestone came up and another epiphany moment came up where my dad got made redundant. So at the age of 57, my dad got made redundant from Barclays Bank. And I realized, well, at this moment, at 25 years old, hold on a minute. My dad's just been made redundant after 41 years of service, working for a bank where he's really sold his soul to the bank, and he spent more time at work than seeing his kids, myself and my sister growing up. And that was all well and good because I know my dad did it from a place of love, and he was a provider and a protector, and I respect him massively for that, and it's a value that's been instilled within me. But he basically spent more time at work than with his family, which I think is pretty normal for most working class families. But it doesn't have to be that way. That's what I learned. And what I learned is that after 41 years, if this guy, my dad, can get made redundant from Barclays Bank, you really are just a number, and job security doesn't actually exist. Now, at this point, my dad got made redundant with a £1 million pension, okay? Now, a £1 million pension was the eureka moment where I realized that, hold on, the £1 million pension pays my dad just £25,000 per year, £36,000 per year without taking the tax-free lump sum. So the transfer value here is about £1,170,000. It would have given a £36,000 pre-tax a year income for him and my mum to retire on, when he's been used to earning, say, a six-figure salary. So I learned that, well, if you get to a £1 million pension, the best case is you're going to end up in a place where you earn pretty much average wage across the whole of the UK. Now, if that's what the best case looks like, I was like, I don't really feel like that's a good trade-off for life. I spend all of my hours, all of my time, trading time for money to end up in a situation at the end of my life, in my golden years, where I can't do all the things that I want to do, and truly can't afford to do the things that I want to do. And that was kind of a sad kind of epiphany, but a reality check for me. And what we ended up doing is my dad ended up taking what we call a 25% tax-free lump sum pension. And I put some of my personal savings together at the time, and we ended up setting up a property portfolio back in 2016. We started out doing some education. We paid £24,000 for 12 months of mentorship. And at this time, my current mentor, who still actively helps me in property today, obviously comes from RMA Properties, because they've been able to successfully build their own wealth through property as well. But the paid mentorship that I did was £24,000, and it was the greatest investment that I invested in myself, and the biggest investment that my dad and I certainly had invested in. And obviously, of course, the very first investment when you're spending £24,000 on education and you're not sure what you're going to get out is obviously naturally fearful. But that, by investing in ourselves first, we were able to get the knowledge and the skill set to develop and grow the business. Within 18 months, we're able to scale from 0 to 15 properties in 18 months and scale the business to £150,000 to £200,000 a year in income from the portfolio. We've done everything from HMOs, where we take and buy, refurbish, refinance. So we bought properties at a discounted price. We then added value through refurbishment, turned them into, say, 5-6 bed HMOs. We then rented them to the professional market, some to the people like Serco, which is housing contractors, asylum seekers type model, housing association model. And then we then branched out into commercial to residential developments. And now at this point, after building up the portfolio alongside my current job at the time, where I was working for Medicare, we was basically able to build it to, like I say, between £150,000 to £200,000 a year in income. And I was able to basically leave my corporate job. And that's typically how most of our clients start. They start, growing the portfolio laterally, simultaneously alongside their corporate jobs. So it's exactly what I've done, is what I'm kind of teaching my clients to do as well, and following in the paths that I've gone through, and is why I'm at where I am today. And then when I quit my corporate job, I went all in on property, continued to develop the business, continued to grow the portfolio, and have been doing so ever since. Branched out into some land development stuff where we're getting projects, trying to get planning on projects. But one of the things I realized is what I want to share with you is, because I don't just want to talk about the good times. I want to be authentic, and I want to talk to you about things that happen and mistakes that happen. And one of the biggest learning curves that I made was that I tried to scale the portfolio a bit too fast, and I rapidly branched into land development a bit too early. And we ended up on one site in Oxford trying to get planning permission for 5 new apartments. And the scheme looked amazing. It all looked great, had a GDV of around £3 million. But we never ended up getting planning permission on it. We ended up spending £60,000 in the whole planning process, and 3 years later, and still didn't get planning. So I learned that, okay, well, actually the most important thing about building a real estate portfolio was to build income, cash flow generating income and to turn assets over quickly, not relying on market growth, not relying on capital appreciation, but buying assets below market value, adding the value, and then commanding a higher value and refinancing and putting most of the money that you put into that property back out so you can use the same pot of cash to buy property 2, 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth. And that was kind of the epiphany moment and the learning curve there. And we ended up branching out and getting planning permission on other properties, commercial properties. We'd get the planning permission and we'd sell those on for profit as well. So we kind of had like a profit utilization strategy alongside a cash flow generating strategy. It's the same type of model and framework that we get our clients to follow, because the biggest thing is everybody in real estate is going to run out of money at some point, right? So for me, for example, well, if I take it back to when I was 15 and I'm now just 34, so it's taken me 19 years to get to the point where I can buy assets in Dubai, arguably some of the most prime real estate pound per square foot units in the world for £1 million cash in 10-minute decisions. It's taken me 19 years to get to that point in my life. So probably certainly isn't get rich quick, but it is get rich for sure. And I've definitely kind of learned that throughout my journey so far in my experience, and I continue to build wealth through real estate today in my consulting businesses. Throughout this journey, once I'd been able to prove to do this for myself, back in 2018 I set up the consultancy practice, which is now called propertyconsulting.io, and we started helping people to grow and scale their own property portfolios, and using my models, my blueprints, our tracking systems and our business model so that they could replicate and emulate the transition from corporate into full-time property investor and start to build real wealth like myself. One of the things that I'm really passionate about is saving taxes. One of the keys that we work on with some of our clients as well is not just helping somebody come in from scratch or 1 or 2 properties, because 98% of people in the UK own just 2 properties, right? So most people in this space, no disrespect, I don't mean this in a defamatory way, most people in this space are what we call an amateur property investor. They only own up to 2 properties. They may be an accidental landlord. They own them in their private personal name. They have problems with inheritance tax. They have problems with Section 24 income tax. They're paying 40% tax, on the gross rental income. They're unable to deduct any of their mortgage interest relief other than the 20% allowance that they get at the end of the year, and they end up paying 24% capital gains tax on disposal. So one of the things that we're very passionate about, of course, is we work with high net worth individuals in our back-end program, and we developed out a model where we could help people incorporate their privately owned rental properties, and we help them to save huge amounts in inheritance tax by setting them up what we call with family investment company structures. So that business started in 2018. It's been developing ever since until today, and we've helped over 2,000 clients over that 6-year period. And again, like I said, some of the most profitable campaigns that we've run through Google Ads on YouTube is we spent £550,000 and got back just under £2.4 million. So, I almost learned how to print money as well at the same time through growing a business and a consulting practice as well. And I've personally sold over £5 million in high ticket sales over Zoom consultations. Now, this didn't happen overnight. I started working with Sam Ovens in 2018. So again, I've worked with a lot of the GOATs in the space. So Sam Ovens, the founder of consulting.com, top 30 under 30, was turning over 36 million a year at just 29 years old. Started working with Sam Ovens in the Accelerator program in 2018. Then advanced into his program at Up Level and then into WeTube. And that opportunity of investing in myself through Sam and learning how to build the consulting business alongside building and continue to develop my property portfolio, there were lessons that I learned that helped me in the consulting world, specifically the online space, to build a consulting practice, but also we're able to cross-pollinate and I guess translate simultaneously into systems that I've developed that have helped me to scale the property portfolio as well. And so Sam was a massive influence on my life. And then what happened is through that process, I got the opportunity to invest into school, which is school.com, which is, as most of you know who are watching this video, if you look it up, is one of the, if not, it's the fastest growing SaaS company in the space right now. And he's doing an amazing job. He's been co-founded by Alex Emozi, the Make Money Online guy, $100 million offers, $100 million leads. And I'm proud to say that I was one of the first seed investors under Series A. And so these opportunities don't come about by chance. They come about by hard work, discipline, and investing in yourself. I've also invested into programs such as Grant Cardone's Cardone University 3-year business contract, which helped me learn sales, negotiation, helped me to build out my sales team. I'm currently working with Closers.io, Cole Gordon and their team. We spent just under $60,000 with them. And I've also worked with Brian Moncada from adspend.com and also Nicholas Kuzmich in the past, who helped run my Facebook ads. So if you look up these guys, they're all like big goats in the space. And I've honestly invested close to £500,000 in my own education, which has been hugely profitable investment, and is one of the reasons why I kind of want to send their elevator down, and one of the reasons why I built the consulting practice in the first place is because everything that I've learned that I appreciate, not everyone can afford to spend £500,000 on education, because I'm so grateful and because of the business profits that I've been able to create through the portfolio, through my investments, through my stocks and shares, through the consulting business and the profits as a businessman and as an entrepreneur, I've been able to invest those sums to learn this education. I'm basically giving you my spin on it, telling you everything that I've learned from experience, application, things that worked, things that didn't work, and I put that into my own platform to help you build a property portfolio from the ground up. And marketing, sales, negotiation, key fundamentals of business will help you to build your property portfolio, because building a property portfolio isn't just about learning financial literacy. For sure, financial literacy is one of the main things that we teach within the program to get you to understand how to run your balance sheet in the right way. But growing a property business is a business. And the biggest mistake that we see most people make is they don't think as property as a business. They don't see that actually my tenant is my customer and my product is the property that I create, and everything else runs as a business and should have standing operating procedures within it. And we find that most people don't apply that or haven't applied that. Even people that are corporate finance lawyers, like our largest client is a guy that has 144 properties, had a huge tax bill on the portfolio, didn't have the right family investment company structure in place to mitigate the taxes, so his whole estate was exposed to 40% inheritance tax, which in the UK is not nice when it becomes into the multiple seven figures of taxes that you've got to pay on your demise. So even the big guys are getting it wrong, which is what we feel passionate about under a one-stop shop umbrella, to branch out. And part of that process is I now own an accounting firm as well. We have an in-house team of tax consultants and barristers and everything that help to pull together the first one-stop shop on the market, and we've put that under the umbrella propertyconsulting.io. So that's a bit about my journey, how I've got here, where I started, what I've done in between, the investments that I've made, some of the key milestones and goals that I've achieved. And that's a bit about me. With that being said as well, just so you get to know me just a little bit more, I think one of the biggest things that maybe separates myself or makes me slightly unique compared to other people in the space is my background. I wanted to be a footballer, professional footballer. And from the age of 9 until 16, I was in an academy. I was hoping to be a footballer, and I was in the newspaper, actually, the Oxford Mail, and it said Richard Norris set for bright future. And I always thought that I was going to make it as a footballer. And I got to the age of 16 and I got released. I didn't quite make it, was in and out of the youth team at the time at Oxford United, and never made it into becoming a pro footballer. But the habits, the discipline, the motivation, the dedication, the kind of setbacks that happened throughout that period of my life from 9 till 16, the dedication and the discipline and the habits that I developed of consistency and that behavior, those behavior habits that transformed into business, I really think helped me to ground as a business entrepreneur. And it's those habits that truly make you successful. The consistency, the willingness to show up and put in the work when you don't want to do it, and have the motivation to do it. Doing the things that you don't want to do, like Hormozi says, fuck how you feel, do it anyway. All of those lessons were instilled within me from a young age, from being in that, competitive world where every boy's dream is to be a footballer. So anyway, I hope that helps you to understand a little bit about me. So I'm going to wrap this one up now. So if you enjoyed my personal story and you kind of like my approach, you like my authentic nature, please feel free to join my channel. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. We're going to be pumping out a lot more content around developing your own property portfolio, how to get into business, how to get into real estate, how to make money through sales, everything. I just want to give you as much value as possible on this channel. I want you to be able to watch these videos, take value and go and implement it for yourself, because I truly want to help you change your life. So if you enjoyed the content, please go ahead, click that bell icon, make sure you subscribe and follow my channel for more content. See you in the next one.